I can see the angel coming for to sing his song. I can hear the drummer drumming. He's coming, and it won't be long. Hear the cry across the nations. People wanna be free, yeah. Free to leave the great plantations. Free to be who they want to be. I see it squeeze out freedom, and it won't be long.
Hey everybody, it's Everett with Ohio for Freedom. It's the 19th of April. Can you believe it? And tonight, welcome to Ohio Country and welcome to your Ohio Country Senate candidate countdown. What we are going to do this evening is pretend that we are counting down the top country hits of the GOP Senate race, sort of. Here's what we're going to do. The name of the program is Ohio for Freedom. We're just dealing with freedom. If Ohio ain't free, the United States ain't free. If the United States ain't free, the world ain't free. And Ohio is free, and the United States is free, and so is the rest. So we deal with a lot of topics, but I will tell you, I'm going to get right into it after I make just a couple of announcements. For the next couple of weeks, we're going to spend a lot more time on Ohio events and Ohio politics, because Ohio's a very, very important state. Ohio used to be a swing state, by the way. It's not a swing state anymore. Just so y'all out there on the lib side of things know, it's not a swing state anymore. It's a MAGA state. It's a conservative state. It's a Christian conservative state, and Ohio is a pro-life state. And so we're going to jump right into it. And in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be joined by a very special guest that's going to be joining us for the next few weeks. At least that's going to be an exciting thing. So without further ado, I'm going to say hi to, Dominic's in the house, Pamela, and you guys. Well, we got New Hampshire, Michigan, and I believe Pennsylvania and West Virginia in the house. But I think you're going to find it interesting because, okay, here's what's up. We have a primary coming up on May 3rd. And we are going to primary our governor, and Lord willing, we will not re-elect globalist medical mafia spearhead Mike DeWine. And we also have a very, very important Senate race. We have right now in this state of Ohio a rhino Republican named Rob Portman. A year and a half ago, right after the debacle of November 3rd, there were brave, real conservative, real GOP senators like Ted Cruz that were going to stand up on the Senate floor, and they were going to have debate about some irregularities that had occurred in November. Guess who wasn't one of them? Rob Portman. And on this program, I called with the camera on, the microphone on. I called Rob Portman's office. Rob Portman's answering machine, in his voice, answered. He sounded kind of like the announcer for Focus on the Family. And he said something like this: "Thanks for calling Rob Portman's office. We're so glad that you called. Please leave your information and we'll be glad to call you back as soon as we're able. We're really glad you called." But he was lying, because he never called back. He never emailed back, and I don't have time to go through all the horrific votes that Rob, the disappointing rhino Republican from Ohio, Portman, has been. But we have an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, here in Ohio to elect a real conservative and a real spearhead in this most important state of Ohio. And we have some really, really good candidates, and we're going to go through them all. And so what I'm going to do first, though, there has been a piece of news that is a few weeks old now. We're going to play at least 90 seconds of this clip because there has been a little bit of a dust up We're going to talk about this clip that I'm going to play a little bit more in detail, but I felt that it would be fitting and proper to begin with this clip. And so here we go. You're going to see an exchange between Josh Mandel and Mike Gibbons. Here we go.
I think it's important to talk facts and dates and companies and who has the moral ability to talk about this. I'm a Marine. I did a couple tours in Iraq, first in 2004, then again in 2007 and 2008. In between, I did funerals for Marines here in Ohio who got killed overseas. Around this same time, my opponent, Mr. Gibbons, was making billions of dollars by shipping Ohio businesses to China. He just got up here and said he wasn't doing that. Let me give you 3 examples. Perfect Fit LLC had thousands of jobs.
It's going to get good.
He took Perfect Fit LLC, and Mike, why don't you explain to everyone why you sold it to a company called Shanghai Shenda? That was in 2015 while President Trump was campaigning against China. And then he did the same exact thing, owning stock in Chinese petro. All right, Mike, would you like to rebuttal that?
Here it goes, folks.
Frankly, I'm not sure where he got Perfect Fit from because I'm unaware of the deal. And I'm not sure what Chinese petro has to do with anything. Are you saying I owned it?
Yeah, you own stock in it.
Listen close. Listen close.
I can tell
You filed that with the Federal Elections Commission. You own stock in Chinese petro.
I personally didn't buy the stock.
We made millions off it, sir.
I don't think I made millions off of anything. I'd love to have made millions off of Chinese petro. First of all,
Shanghai Shenda and Chinese petro.
buying a second, you may not understand this because you've never been in the private. No, you don't.
I do.
You've never been in the private sector in your entire life.
I've worked, sir.
Josh, watch.
About 2 tours in Iraq. Don't tell me I haven't worked. Don't tell me I haven't worked.
You don't know squat.
It's okay, right?
You don't know squat.
2 tours in Iraq. Don't tell me I haven't worked.
Back off, buddy.
You back off.
Never that'll happen.
Sit down.
Never.
Watch.
Yeah.
Watch.
We'll swear away the deal with the wrong dude.
No, you're dealing with the wrong man. You watch what happens. Listen, you watch what happens. All right.
Well, okay, folks, that actually happened. That really, really did happen. And it was it was quite a bit. Now, we're going to comment on that quite a bit, but you just watched and right now, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go from the bottom of the polls to the top of the polls, and there's different polls that are out there, but I believe that I'm accurate in saying right now at the top of the heap, it's about a 3-way race between Josh Mandel, Mike Gibbons, and J.D. Vance. Now, we're going to go through the different candidates. And one of the reasons that I want to do this is because I talk to people that are awake. I talk to people that are paying attention, that spend a lot of time researching a lot of things. And yet I've noticed that when I talk to people in Ohio and I say, who are you going to support in a Senate race? They're just kind of getting around to it. And I understand that. But the other side of the coin is there are more and more people that are focused at the local level on up than ever before. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through kind of starting at the bottom of the polling. If I get somebody a little bit out of order, I don't mean any disrespect to anybody. And the first gentleman that I'm going to talk about, I hope that I say his name correctly. And this is Josh Mandel pictured here, but I believe it's going to go to, and it's hard for me to pronounce the first name, but it's like Ozzy, but his last name is Patel. And so this is unfortunate. If he comes up right, this was not his best moment. And I just want to say, I've done my homework. I have gone through 3 of the last debates, and the clip that you played was from yet a 4th debate. So I'm trying to be fair here, but we're going to do a countdown. And when we get to the top, there is some opinion mixed in, and guess whose opinion I'm going to be sharing? Yeah, I'm going to be sharing mine. So let's hope this plays right here, and I believe this should go to Mr. Patel.
Again, several claims Mr. Mandel made have been fact-checked.
Oh, let me say this again. I wanted to, on one of the debates that was headed up by PBS, This obnoxious spokesbabe, I mean, obnoxious in demeanor, she kept pulling this fact check thing out. And I think the candidates did a pretty good job. But we are so sick and so tired. They were talking about election discrepancies and inconsistencies. And she would say, these have been fact checked and found to be, you'll hear what she says. But folks, you know, if you have ever done the study of how these fact checkers are funded, you know there's no such thing as independent fact checkers. That's a complete and total farce, but she just said it. And Dominic, by the way, if you're out there, buddy, just click that link when we get started. So anyway, this is something that the candidates had to contend with in one of the debates. Here we go.
Again, several claims Mr. Mandel made have been fact checked with no evidence found to support them. We're moving on now to Mark Paquita. You have 90 seconds.
Okay, so that's what they had to deal with. Now we're going to go to Mr. Patel.
Okay, I want to just say something else about it. When Clarence Thomas appointed by President Clinton in 92 or 93, around that area, and President Clinton appointed him, I think he's doing so far awesome job. And I don't want to say anything more, but thank you very much.
Okay, that gentleman, Mr. Patel, he's a nice fella. He'd probably be way better than Rob Portman. He's polling about 1%. Mr. Patel, thank you for the effort. I mean, brother. And by the way, I'm going to talk to the candidates. Maybe they don't know that I'm talking to them, but Mr. Patel, thank you for your efforts. It's not going to happen for you, sir. It's not going to happen for you, sir. And I'm sorry to play the most embarrassing clip available for you of the evening, because overall you're a pretty smart guy. You've been successful, but Clarence Thomas was actually not appointed by President Clinton. He was appointed by George Bush. And so that was really unfortunate. Now we're going to get, this Mr. Patel is not going to be the number one in the countdown. And so without further ado, I want to introduce to you Mr. Dominic Xavier, who's going to be joining us on a regular basis all the way from the state of Georgia. Dominic, how you doing? Unmute yourself. You got to unmute.
Guys, I'm doing great. Coming to you live from the hostess city of the South, where the tea is sweet and the sand gnats are sweeter. Coming to you guys from, like Ohio, Wisconsin, some of these other states, one of the hottest states that people are looking at and looking towards, as I know you said your primary is coming up a little bit sooner than ours.
Yeah.
Ours is May 24th, and I'm excited to be here representing the Chatham Free Press. And Everett, thank you for having me.
Well, thanks, Dominic. You've agreed to help me out for a few weeks at least, and hopefully we'll do that more. But what kind of things are you going to be talking to us about over the next few weeks?
Sure.
And yet, Georgia's a hotbed, but let us know what we can expect going forward.
Yeah. So specifically, and the first thing that I want to really get out to people is that our election, our primary for the governor's race here in Georgia is May 24th. Now, everybody knows Brian Kemp. A lot of people know that President Trump has endorsed former Senator David Perdue. But
right.
What most people don't know is that there's actually a third Republican candidate by the name of Candace Taylor. And what's really interesting about the dynamic that we're witnessing here in this primary is that everybody agrees that we need to get Brian Kemp replaced. But the difficult thing is, what is traditionally a voting bloc, being the America First Trump supporters, who, for better or worse, typically listen to his endorsed candidates and go all in with them. That is not the case with Candace Taylor. And I don't want to get too much into that, but I think people, both Georgians and nationwide, need to realize that not only are we dealing with a Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, who finally has decided and made public that he's referred 1,600 local election cases for investigation and potential prosecution after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay. After that, we just did the state's first citizenship voter audit, and they found 1,600 cases they think are now worthy of looking into. So, I mean, the corruption from the Secretary of State to the governor's office, I mean, it's all there. And the one thing that I think is worth mentioning, whether you're a grassroots diehard Candace Taylor supporter, you're somebody who's following the endorsement of President Trump, going with Senator David Perdue, or you are a party loyalist and you see no wrongs with what Governor Kemp's done, the fact remains Georgia is a battleground. And if the conservative party and the conservative movement doesn't find a way to unify and to let their bygones be bygones, Selena Montgomery, the romance novelist and part-time gubernatorial candidate who goes by the name Stacey Abrams, guys, and I hate to say that, here's my prediction. Well, I'm not even going to give my prediction. It's important that people get this side of the story, but also, you know, we've had a lot of changes again after the election, and we still have to rectify 2020. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. A lot of people, the good thing I can tell you, Everett, is I've been given a lot of access to local candidates, but statewide as well. So you can expect to see both interviews. Sometimes I'll be joining you live, but ultimately what I'm going to be providing is a weekly recap of the hot stories in Georgia with an emphasis on this primary campaign. And I'll tell you, both personally and as an entity, the Chatham Free Press, we have not endorsed a candidate. We are not endorsing a candidate, but what we will be doing is giving you, as best we can, an honest and objective look from a conservative at our options heading into 2022 and again going into 2024. So personally, I can't get over 2020. So I still want to, you know, I'm harping on the audits and the corruption and all of that. But ultimately, the most beneficial thing I can do for your audience is to keep you abreast of the local action here and to try to, you know, I don't know what's going to happen on May 24th. I think the local elections I've got a pretty good feel for, but I'm excited to talk about both the campaigns and the people who are following them and to give my perspective on that.
You know, this is something that we're dealing with. I want to highlight this comment. Candy is saying, same in Ohio, Trump is endorsing J.D. Vance and Mark Paquita is the real constitutional conservative Senate candidate. Well, here's what I'm going to say, Candy. We're going to go through every single candidate and just look at some different facts about them. And I think that, and I appreciate you weighing in on this, but Dominic, and then you've got the stuff that like Garland Favorito is working on in Fulton County and there's a lot, but folks, conservatives have look, it's no time to be tired. It's no time to be, I'm done with it. It's really time to pay attention. And Dominic, I think really we have to, sometimes we got to mend some fences in some places, but we can't afford to be splintered and just, you know, pout and you know, take our ball and bat and go home. We can't do that, right?
Right, and that's the really interesting thing, because you know, we're all on the same team, but there are some very clear divisions, and I hope, you know, we're able to come together. But it's going to be interesting. And the one thing I want to say, after 2000 Mules, Dinesh D'Souza's film comes out. I think Georgia and some of these other hot button states, there's going to be a flood of new information being given and a new understanding about what happened. So things are going to get exciting. May 24th. I kind of wanted to. I was very interested in that clip you played. That's kind of the state of where we're at right now. I mean,
Oh yeah, it made national news. Well, I got to roll here in just a minute, Dominic. But let me now, you've seen the movie Rigged, right? Can you just, for those in the audience that aren't familiar with it, can you give it like a 30-second thumbs up or thumbs down?
The film is a must watch. 2 thumbs up on that. If anyone had any idea, and I'm somebody who considers himself to be more educated than the average tinfoil hat wearer. When they broke down in less than an hour, people, you can watch this in 45 minutes and realize it was not a coincidence where the money flowed. It was not a bipartisan, nonpartisan effort to really help anything other than one political party steal the election. And when people watch that, combine it with what they know to be true, walking around the grocery aisle and seeing everybody we know something's wrong. And I look forward to, along with you, Everett, being one of those forces that help people see the truth, hold the line, and to eventually come back together.
Yep. And then the 2000 Mules, a lot of that is, I haven't seen it yet, but I understand an awful lot of it is going to be drawing on info and footage and video from your state. Am I correct on that?
Correct. So the movie's actually not out yet, and I'll let Dinesh D'Souza explain that their marketing strategy for how they're going to release it is absolutely brilliant. But people are going to see in real time the way that that individuals, the 2,000 mules, and there was more, took multiple ballots, stuffed them into the drop boxes, the ways in which it's not insinuation, right? They have it all. This dead right, but minds are gonna be blown. And I'm not keeping a list of people who owe me, and I'm sorry, you were right. Yeah, but I'm watching. Right. All right. Appreciate it, Dominic. And you're going to be with us Tuesdays, maybe more. How can people stay in touch with what you're doing? Where do they find you at? Yeah, great question, guys. So I'm on the Chatham Free Press on Facebook. I've got a business page there. I'd really like to direct everybody to our Rumble page. Just search Chatham Free Press. We're on Instagram, chathamfp.com. But the easiest way to get a hold of me is to come tune in every Tuesday at 9:00 and on Ohio for Freedom. Thank you, Everett. God bless, and let's make America great again. I love it. All right, man. Thanks, Dominic. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Okay, bye-bye. All right, folks, we're going to keep it rolling, and I'm going to try to go through these candidates. And I hope as we go through, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because we got people that support different people, and but we just got to be grown up about this and see where we're at. So, Mr. Patel, nice fella, probably would be way better than Rob Portman. He's not going to make the top of the count. It's not going to happen. Now, this next candidate, if I've got my slides in right, I hope so. I believe this is Mark Paquita. If it is, I'm just going to let it play. And okay, it is. And here's what I want to say about Mark Paquita before I play this. This guy is very, very, very sharp. He is very smart. He's a business owner. He's created a lot of jobs here in Ohio. He has posted like a 21-point action plan on his website, and he's a straight talker. And so I'm going to play this clip, and then we're going to talk about it.
We're being lied to by everybody about Ukraine, including the media. Putin's lying to us. Zelensky's lying to us. The UN's lying to us. Our government's lying to us. Our community, our intelligence community is lying to us. And the media is lying the most. I am for sending arms to Ukraine, just like other countries, because this is a humanitarian disaster. They need to be taking care of themselves in no uncertain terms. I would never support a no-fly zone, and here's why.
Okay, I'm going to jump out of there, folks, and I'm just going to say Mr. Paquita is very, very smart, very tough. I loved what he said in, you can only pull so much, and squeeze it all into a program. But I loved it when he said the media is lying, the intelligence community is lying, our government is lying. He's being very, 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 very straight about it. Here's what I would say about Mr. Paquita. When you look at the polling, I just don't see it happening for Mr. Paquita. I just don't see it happening. And it is what it is. I know that I have actually quite a number of people that message me regularly that are very much in the camp for Mr. Paquita. I'll just say this. Mr. Paquita is welcome to come on this program anytime and talk about anything. You don't have to agree with me. I support you, sir. I'm just reading the tea leaves. Poll-wise, something like amazing, unprecedented would have to happen for you to win that primary. I hope that if things don't go the way that you're looking for, we really appreciate what you are doing, and our state needs your involvement and needs your, wisdom and leadership and all of that. I wish you well. I said, polling wise, he's in a really, really, really tough spot. So I'm going to keep rolling here. Now this, I believe, is,
again, there are a couple statements that have been fact checked.
Okay.
No evidence found to
Who's
support
coming up
them.
here?
Let's move on now to Matt Dolan.
Which one's
Let's move on to Matt Dolan.
Okay. This fella here, Matt Dolan, got into the race in September of 2021. I think this clip for me helps me sort of put him in a spot in my brain. I'm going to let it play.
Again, there are a couple statements that have been fact checked. No evidence found to support them.
Thank you,
Let's
dear
move on
sports
now to
baby.
Matt Dolan.
Which one's?
Let's move on to Matt Dolan.
All right,
There you
so
go.
the lanes are pretty clear here. Let me be very clear. Joe Biden is the legitimate president of the United States. My problem is he's a failed president. And everyone up on the stage wants to go to Washington to look backwards. Well, if you're a family out there fighting inflation, it costs more to put food on your table, it costs more to put gas in your car, that you're worried about your security because we have a party that defunds police.
Okay, I'm going to stop and talk about that. Now, this gentleman, Tom Dolan, what the question that he was asked was about, and we're on these different platforms, everybody, but about the validity of certain things that happened in November of 2020. And he just stated his position that Fojo is the legitimate president. And he goes on to say, I'm the only candidate that's looking forward. In other words, everybody that has the same kind of concerns that the rigged 2020 movie has, everybody that has concerns that the 2000 Mules movie is going to talk about, everybody that has concerns about which there are thousands and thousands of affidavits and anything to do with audits and so forth. According to Mr. Dolan, that's looking back. That's over. That happened. And he wants everybody to know that he is the only one that is looking forward. And he, I guess in his mind, that's a good thing. I don't agree with that, but that's his position. And I think this is another clip from Mr. Dolan.
So I know who doesn't think this is a distraction. The good people of northeastern Ohio, where we have thousands of Ukrainian.
Okay, let me stop that right there. Now they're talking about Ukraine. This is still Mr. Dolan. And J.D. Vance had just made the comment that we should not be in Russia. We should not be in Ukraine. It's horrific. It's disturbing. It's alarming. But it's not our fight. And we should be more concerned with our southern border. And so this is Mr. Dolan wanting to prove, in my opinion, just prove to the rest of the world that he just cares a lot more than anybody else. And I'm going to let this play.
So I know who doesn't think this is a distraction. The good people of northeastern Ohio, where we have thousands of Ukrainian folks, and you here in Cincinnati, where Kharkiv is your sister city. And if we're paying attention to what's happening in Ukraine, Kharkiv is getting bombed by Putin.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
But their spirit is strong. They're singing their national anthem to stand up to Putin. So imagine how disheartened they must be when a candidate for the U.S. Senate says he does not care at all about what happens to Ukraine. We are.
Okay, first of all, it wasn't, Mr. Vance didn't say that he does not care at all. He's just trying to put things in perspective. But basically, the reason I wanted to play this clip is Dolan is, if you're worried about election integrity from 2020, you're looking backwards. You need to move on. That's old. That's done. You just need to look ahead. And now he's basically taken the same tack that, okay, I'm going to stop short of a no-fly zone, but we need to send all kind of money, all kind of arms, all kind of everything to Ukraine. In other words, my humble opinion, he's totally buying the mainstream narrative.
But the reality is,
And here we go. So that's going to take us moving up the polls to Miss Jane Timken. When I play this clip of Miss Timken, let me just play it and then I'll comment.
I'm Jane Timken. I'm running to be your next United States Senator to fight for the America First agenda. As most parents know, when something threatens your children, you fight. Well, I'm a mom on a mission to take our country back, to fight for American jobs, border security, and parents' rights and education. The question in this race is, who do you trust to fight for the America First agenda? We've got a lot of show horses in this race, but I'm a workhorse, someone who's led with grit and grace to get things done, and I've done just that. In 2016, President Trump asked me to take over the Republican Party because John Kasich had driven it into a ditch. I took on the establishment and won, and delivered Ohio for President Trump. And as the former chair of the Republican Party, I have to say this. The behavior of Josh Mandel and Mike Gibbons has been embarrassing. They've been acting like children, and children don't win elections. We have too much at stake, and we cannot risk the seat to Tim Ryan. If you're like me, you're disgusted by what the Democrats and Joe Biden have been doing to this country. Inflation is skyrocketing, gas prices are soaring, our border is burning.
Okay, she gets some of that stuff right. Now, I want to be kind of watching some content here, some comments here, but I want to just say something about Jane Timken. I'm trying to like Jane Timken. I'm just sharing some of my feelings. Jane, when I heard you started running for Senate, like 2 years ago, and she ran these ads, and there's like 5 things that you will hear Jane Timken say over and over and over and over. I'll tell you what those are in just a second. But when you first heard her ads, like a year and a half ago, she would say, I delivered Ohio for President Trump. I took over the GOP and I delivered the Ohio for President Trump. It's like she's Paul Bunyan in Babe in the Blue Ox, and she just reached down and all by herself grabbed Ohio and delivered it for President Trump. I guess Kellyanne Conway, campaign manager, didn't have anything to do with it. I guess Donald Trump, who actually went out and did the rallies and did the speeches, didn't have anything to do with it. Jane delivered Ohio for President Trump. Just sounds kind of presumptuous, or just, I don't know. It's just almost weirdly arrogant. But I've gone through 3 of the debates, and I got to tell you, Jane, I know you probably focus group these things, but you got 5 things that you say, Jane. You say, I'm a mom on a mission. If you have 5 times to speak in a debate, 4 out of those times you're going to say, I'm a mom on a mission, and 1 of those times you're going to say it twice. And then you say, I'm a mom on a mission, and I'm a workhorse, not a show horse. Okay, that's cute. Maybe you could say that once a year. You say that 2 or 3 times every single debate. So I'm a mom on a mission. I'm a workhorse and not a show horse. Then you go back to this, I delivered President Trump. And then there's one more that she says, and then she will tell you, and I drove 150,000 miles on my car. I'm going to pull up. I made a note. There's one. Where's my Jane note here? Where's the, or Julie Timken. I'm sorry. I'm calling her Jane. Oh my gosh. And Julie Timken, I'm confused here. I'm making a mistake here, but Ms. Timken, if I hear you say grit and grace one more time, I'm going to grit my teeth, and there's not going to be a lot of grace with that. So it's mom on a mission, grit and grace, workhorse, not a show horse. I delivered single-handedly, all by myself, Ohio for President Trump, and I drove 150,000 miles to do it. It's just, I'm sorry. And Ms. Timken, I'm trying to like you. I know you're all in. I know you're sincere. I know you really, really want this. We're looking at the polls. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So sincerely, when this is over, I will hope that you will chill out, rest up, refresh your mind, refresh your heart, refresh your spirit, because we need you. But this Senate seat is not going to go to Ms. Timken. And I think I mispronounced the first name. It's been a long day, folks. But I guess I could say I'm a dad on a dare, and I've got the courage to care. I mean, it's just kind of tiring. I want to keep this rolling here. So that was Ms. Timken. Now we're going to we're just moving up the polls, folks, moving up the polls. Here we go.
The situation in Ukraine was invited by Joe Biden's weakness. It was preventable. We know that the Ukrainians were asking for sanctions and military equipment long before Putin invaded Russia. We need to stand up for the Ukrainians and provide them with the military equipment so that they can remove Putin and Russians from Ukraine.
Okay, now that all sounds real good. I'm going to let this next part play. Got a little confused there, but I just want here's another reason that I just don't see it in the cards for Ms. Timken here, and it's Jane. I might have called her Julie. I don't know Jane Timken. But she's going to listen to what she says about this maternity ward, and it tells you everything you need to know. She's completely buying the mainstream narrative. I'm here to tell you, I don't believe that there was any maternities in that maternity ward. Was that going to play for me or what?
I think everyone here on this.
Well, let's see.
I think everyone.
Come on now. Oh, I'm having issues here.
The situation in Ukraine was invited by Joe Biden's weakness. It was preventable. We know that the Ukrainians were asking for sanctions and military equipment long before Putin invaded Russia. We need to stand up for the Ukrainians and provide them with the military equipment so that they can remove Putin and Russians from Ukraine. As a mom watching the Russians bomb a maternity ward, watching dead people lying in the street, it's heartbreaking.
That's what I wanted to play. But did that ever really happen? Was it a maternity ward, or was it a former maternity ward turned military outpost? I don't hear anything from Jane Timken that seems to really understand what's really going on, and we just don't need any more of that. Okay, let's see where else we are.
I think
now.
everyone here on the stage agrees that we should not be sending.
Okay, this is Josh Mandel. And we're getting near the, we're getting closer to the countdown, I like Josh Mandel. He is and he will tell you he's a foiter. He's not a fighter. He's a foiter. Everybody speaks the way that they speak. However, and I'm just going to say this right now, because I know that I'm going to talk about Josh Mandel quite a bit. I know, Connie says that Jane's a rhino. Okay. I'm trying to be gracious and I'm trying to be kind. Connie, the wonderful news is Jane's not going to be our senator. That's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. I wish her well. I think her heart is generally in the right place. We don't want to hate people. You go to war with the army that you have, not the army that you wish you had, but she's not going to be senator. But I want to say something about Josh Mandel. I used to work with a guy that, and we mended fences years after this period of time that I'm thinking about. But he would always say, as a Marine, and then he would go on to say whatever he said, as a Marine, and it just grated on you. And one time I was just feeling kind of snarky, and I said, I'm not going to say his name. And I said, you're always pulling this Marine card. And I said, you know something? I used to wear a uniform too, but I never pull rank on you. I never remind you that I was a Cub Scout and I made Webelos. I mean, it just gets to be kind of hollow, but Mr. Mandel just says it over and over, this Marine thing. And you saw from that earliest clip that we played, Mike Gibbons is being attacked about some business deals, and maybe there's some validity to that. But it gets obscured because Mike Gibbons stands up and he says something that, guess what, was factual. He says, Josh, you've never worked in the private sector. Now, I went on Wikipedia and I went some other like military Wikipedia and so forth. And from what I can tell, Mr. Gibbons is right. I can't find, now if it's there and I'm missing it, I apologize. I can't find any private sector work that Josh Mandel has ever done. But Josh Mandel jumps up, stands up, starts going chest to chest with a 70-year-old man and says, don't tell me I haven't worked. Don't tell me I haven't worked. 2 tours in Iraq. And that's one of my problems too with Mr. Mandel. And that is this. Listen, your service, Mr. Mandel, Josh, I appreciate it. I honor that. I honor you for that. But dear Lord God, I hope you would realize that if you went to Iraq to oust Saddam Hussein and uncover weapons of mass destructions, dear Lord in heaven, Josh, you of all people ought to realize you were lied to get into that war. And then when you're talking about Ukraine, it's as though you haven't learned anything from that. And if the research that I did today is right, you were in some kind of military intelligence when you were in the service. And so it would seem to me, with all due respect, that you of all people would realize that we've been lied. We've gone down this road before where we've been lied into things. And 2 debates before what I just played, Mandel and Gibbons both said they supported a no-fly zone as long as The Europeans did it and America didn't do it. Well, folks, it's the same thing. If we're sending our planes, if we're sending our, it is the same thing. They didn't have the courage to say we need to stay out. And none of them, nobody on those stages ever said anything about the corruption that we have been a part of in the United States. And so I kind of went off on a rant there, but I knew that I would, so I don't feel bad. So here we go.
I think everyone here on the stage agrees that we should not be sending American boys and girls over there. As a Marine Corps vet who did my small part on a couple tours in Iraq, sending young men and women.
Now, I'm going to let this play, and I want you to listen to his answer. He's going to talk about all the things that the Ukrainians need, and including like the civilians that are having to arm themselves. He's going to go through all this stuff. But ask yourself, who does he want us to send them to? The real innocent Ukrainian civilians, or does he want us to send them to the Azov battalion? Does he even know that there's an Azov battalion and other Nazis over there? I'm going to let it play. I thought I was going to let it play. I see what I got to do.
I think everyone here on the stage agrees that we should not be sending American boys and girls over there. As a Marine Corps vet who did my small part on a couple tours in Iraq, sending young men and women, whether it's on the ground or in the air, to this fight with Ukraine and Russia, for me, is just off the table. What are some things we can be doing and should be doing? Sending defense systems. I talked to a friend of mine here in Ohio who's a Ukrainian American who's in contact with a lot of folks over there, and some of the things they need: Patriot missile systems, Avenger missile systems, tactical radios is a big thing. There's so many civilians that they're training on the fly to be war fighters, and they're communicating via cell phones, and the Russians are listening to them. And so tactical radios is actually a big need over there. Flak jackets as well. But the most significant need is surface to air and surface to sea type defense.
Okay, I'm going to get out. When he's talking about surface to air, boy, that sounds like escalation. I'm sorry. I just the way that Mr. Mandel is coming across to me is that, and it's so surprising that as a vet, maybe it's if you served in Iraq, it's just too hard for you to admit to yourself that you were part of something that the whole world was lied into. It wasn't just you, Josh, it was all of us. But my goodness, why would we want to do all of that all over again? And some of us are just not willing to support sending all this time and getting closer and closer to human involvement in the same old thing that we've been a part of. I think part of that played audio-wise without video. My apologies there. We're getting better at it. Let's see what we got.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons.
The constitutional carry provision that we just had enacted in this.
All right, I have now moved.
Just enforce what we are.
And I think I figured out okay, if I do it this way. Okay, this is going to be Mike Gibbons. Now, here's what I'll say about Mike Gibbons. Now, I heard Jane Timken say this, and then after she said it, about a week went by, and it seems to be absolutely true. At one point, he was definitely the top one in the polls. Why? Because he spent so much money. Mr. Gibbons' place in the polls is primarily a result of the millions of dollars of his own money. It's just old school conventional ad buys, radio and television, reaching people that watch radio, watch TV rather, and listen to television. But that lead is not nearly as strong as it was. But here's what Mr. Gibbons is a nice fella. He's very, very smart. He's obviously smart enough that he's been done extremely successful in business, made a ton of money. But he's commenting about the constitutional carry law that was just passed in Ohio, that you don't have to have a permit to carry. And I just want you to listen to his answer because, frankly, I don't even know if it makes any sense. And that's another thing. Mike Gibbons will be talking, and then there would just be this pause that you could drive a truck through. I don't think he's like Fojo. I don't mean like that. I just don't think he's a very good communicator. Now, one-on-one making business deals, he must be a whiz. But communicating something to the masses and being able to sell a concept and sell an idea on a Senate stage, I'm sorry. I just, this is my opinion. I just don't see it, but I'm going to let this play.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons.
The constitutional carry provision that we just had enacted in the state really just enforced what we already had as far as a right under our Second Amendment rights. Nothing's really changed. We're just now being allowed to carry the guns.
Thank you.
Did that even make any sense? Nothing's changed, but now we can carry the guns. Before we couldn't, but now we can, but nothing's changed. I understand the underlying concept is, yeah, we have a Second Amendment, but we just passed a law. Previous to passing the law, there'd be times that you could be carrying a weapon and could get in big trouble for it. That changed after they passed the law, but according to Mr. Gibbons, nothing's changed except things have changed. There you go. Okay, I'm going to keep rolling here. So now we're going to talk about J.D. Vance.
Yeah, first I'd like to ask the fellow candidates up here, please don't comment on my wife this evening. I don't want to have a Will Smith situation at tonight's debate. I'm J.D. Vance. I'm running for Senate for the basic idea.
I don't know what my friend is scrolling.
Food and energy prices are skyrocketing. Joe Biden's about to border us into Russia, and our border.
I've got two things happening here.
And what you'll hear, unfortunately, too much is too many slogans and too many talking points from politicians. I hope what you hear from me tonight is substance, actual ideas for how to solve these problems. Yes, I don't have enough respect for you to talk to you like you're not an idiot, which is unfortunately what too many politicians refuse to.
Okay, we got an issue with that. I'm going to bring it back. So here's where I'm going to go, folks. We'll just bring that back up here. My apologies. I think I had like two different presentations going at the same time, and it's always kind of stressful when you got to pull it up on the fly, but I think we can do that. And here's what I'll say. And let me just get the cat out of the bag. President Trump has endorsed J.D. Vance, and he was catching a lot of flack. Okay, we're going to stop right there. Okay, now I'm going to bring this back up, and I apologize. I love being my own producer. I'm going to let J.D. Vance play this clip, and if it plays properly, and then we will comment on it.
Too worried about that. At the end of the day, we should not be doing a no-fly zone. We should not be getting involved in Russia at all. It's not our problem. Doesn't mean you can't accept that there's great tragedy in Ukraine at a personal level. Doesn't mean you can't pray for Ukraine. We certainly have the last few weeks at church. But at the end of the day, it is not our job and it is not our business. Let's remember exactly what happened with Ukraine and compare that to what's happened in our own country. So congressional Republicans and Democrats refused to give Donald Trump $4 billion for a U.S. border wall over 4 years, while fentanyl, illegal drugs, and tons of other problems poured into this country, killing our citizens. They gave Joe Biden $14 billion for Ukraine in 1 week. That suggests some pretty messed up priorities. Now, let's just also step back and recognize that Hunter Biden is a person who has gotten a ton of business relationships in that area of the world. Can you imagine the media howling if Don Jr. had made hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in Ukraine, and then his father had started a war in that area of the country? At least it allowed his country to get more and more involved in a war in that area of the country. At the end of the day, we've got tons of problems here. The best thing that we can do to ensure the strength of our country is to focus on our own problems. You have to remember, the same people who want to escalate in Ukraine are the same people who screwed up Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya. We should not be giving those people more power at the same time while our own country is suffering.
Folks, I got to tell you, in my opinion, this is how this is hitting me. That's the best answer about Ukraine out of all of them. That's absolutely the best Ukraine out of all of them. When he's talking about Hunter Biden, he's talking about corruption. And there's a couple of things about J.D. Vance that he has said that nobody else has said. And one of them you just heard. He is the only candidate that is saying, stay out of it. He's the only candidate that is saying, stay out of it, don't escalate, don't trust the lies. The same people that were lying about all this other stuff, why would we trust them now? And in all three of those debates, he will say, why is it that Joe Biden, faux Biden's Congress would give $14 billion to Ukraine in a week after midnight, and they couldn't give Donald Trump $4 billion to finish a wall? I think he's got the best position on Ukraine. What's on the screen right now is some of that infighting that maybe we were talking about with Dominic, because We the People convention came out and endorsed Mike Gibbons. I think it was last week. Then Donald Trump endorsed J.D. Vance. And then We the People convention, and I like We the People convention. I admire Tom Z. He sends out all kind of cool stuff, and I really appreciate it. But then they put out a press release that says, We the People convention calls on Trump to withdraw endorsement of J.D. Vance. Tom, with all due respect, you ain't going to bully President Trump into doing anything. I don't agree with his endorsement of Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, but I can squawk and squeal and make all kind of stuff. He's not going to pull that. He is not going to pull his endorsement of J.D. Vance in Ohio. What'd you put out that press release for? That's just crazy to me. Let's just let people go to the ballot box and see who wins. But I don't buy your argument about J.D. Vance. I just want to point that out here. Now, here's another clip from J.D. Vance.
Inflation crisis for a few simple reasons, right? Number one is because Joe Biden is spending money that we don't have. You spend and spend and spend. You print and print and print. That forces the cost of all the goods and services we rely on to go up. Something else that's going on. One of the things that's happening in our economy right now is it's hard for people to find workers. And we pursued a lot of policies.
Now, this is really important.
18 months that puts good workers out of good jobs. For example, healthcare costs are skyrocketing. So why are we firing a bunch of nurses in this country because they don't want to get the vaccine, even though a lot of them have already had COVID? Okay, I'm
going to stop right there because I'm getting short of time. J.D. Vance is the only one that has said, stay out of Ukraine, stay out of it. He's also, at least as far as these debates, he's the only person that has mentioned vaccine mandates and that they're unconstitutional and has taken issue. Nobody else even brought it up. I think that's absolutely huge. I'm going to go to the next clip.
Yeah, look, I just want to address the thing that happened earlier, because what really annoyed me is that, Josh is a former Marine. I myself served in the Marine Corps for 4 years, and I hate when people use the Marine Corps as a political football. I don't know why you use the Marine Corps every single time you're attacked, Josh. It's kind of ridiculous. Let's talk about the issue.
I actually, and I said that earlier, I absolutely agree with that. J.D. Vance was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, but he's not like a Dan Crenshaw, the guy with the eye patch that wants you to put him in a place where he can't be criticized, and he's always using that as a bully club over everybody so that he can get away with things. That's what John McCain did. So I really appreciate that. J.D. Vance could go around saying, as a Marine. He doesn't do that. I think it was right for calling that out. There's another clip I want to play.
But you've called our country's leaders, quote, idiots, scumbags, and more. Isn't that a contradiction? 60 seconds.
Listen to this answer.
No, look, at the end of the day, a lot of our leaders are dumb, and a lot of our leaders have made very terrible decisions. To restore mutual respect, it's not about us having more respect for the leaders who are destroying this country. It's about our leaders having respect for their citizens, and our citizens having respect for one another. No issue illustrates this more than the nonstop obsession with vaccine mandates. You saw it coming from the corporate sector, the big multinationals. You saw it coming from the government as well. What happened to accepting that different people are going to make different decisions about what goes into their body? What happens to respecting one another as fellow citizens?
Okay, there again, he's making the case about vaccine mandates, and I think he's making a good point. So he was the only one that's got it right on Ukraine. He's the only one that was mentioning vaccine mandates. And there's one clip that I ran out of time to grab. There's one thing that J.D. Vance said in one of these debates that I have been waiting for somebody to say for a long time. And it came up in connection with talking about Ukraine. And he said, instead of being focused on Ukraine, 6,000 miles away, why aren't we concerned with our southern border? And here's what he said. He said, isn't it time that we declare the Mexican cartels as a terrorist organization, terrorist state, so that the military could take them out, could actually go and take them out if necessary? Nobody else has said that. And folks, maybe I'm on a rant here. Why in the world did we spend 20 years in Afghanistan? Why in the world did we go to Iraq and spend all that time and energy when we have an enemy that is getting stronger by the day, just the other side of the Mexican border? The Mexican cartel is making so much money off of Fojo's no border, and they are shipping in fentanyl. We have literally hundreds of thousands of people dying every year from overdoses. Those are the terrorists. And I got to say, J.D. Vance is the only person that said that. And I'm going to play this last clip, and then we're going to talk about and bring this in for a landing. He also takes issue with another entity that I haven't heard anybody take an issue with. So this is about 90 seconds. I'm going to let it play.
What are the 2 or 3 things on a policy basis that you will do as United States Senator that Donald J. Trump thought highly enough about that separates you out from your other competitors, from the Gibbons, from the Mandels, from the Timkins? What do you think it was that he bought into for you to jump into obviously a very tight, very contentious, probably the highest profile race with a number of very qualified people, sir?
Yeah, look, I think it's policy. You're exactly right. At the end of the day, MAGA is not a slogan. America First is not a talking point. You actually have to believe in these things. And ultimately, it goes down to overthrowing the oligarchy in this country that has controlled our economy, that has controlled our borders, that has controlled our very speech and the way that we think through big tech censorship. I'd say if I had to pick 2 issues, Steve, number one, I'm the only candidate in the race talking not just about China. It's easy to say you don't like China, but talking about the Trump tariffs that we're working to push back against the Chinese. We need more of them. We need a full-bore commitment to fighting the Chinese using American economic power to do it. Number 2 is absolutely, I think, the big tech issue. The president knows that I'm not going to be one of these guys who wags his finger at the big tech CEOs on a Senate conference call where they run circles around these guys. I'm actually talking about substantive ideas for breaking up these big tech monopolies, giving people like the president, all the way to middle-class Ohio conservatives who love the president, a voice again in our own country. Steve, we got to wake up.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Folks, if you haven't figured it out, J.D. Vance has got my support. I'm weighing in with Donald Trump on this one. I was already a J.D. Vance guy, but it does give it a little more credibility President Trump has weighed in. But I want to go over the 4 things that, as I perceive, that I see J.D. Vance talking about that nobody's talking about. First of all, he's the only one that's got it right on Ukraine. Stay out. And along with that, I'd like to see him go a little bit farther, but he's talking about the corruption. And I have said we can't pour time and energy and treasure and blood and lives and cover over something that is a cesspool of corruption. He didn't go as far as I'd like to see him go, but when he talks about Hunter Biden and the Biden crime family over there, I think he gets it. And maybe he wants to be a little careful about his campaign, but he wants to stay out. And that's right. Number 2, he's the only person that has talked about the unconstitutional mandates. Nobody else has, at least in the 3. And some of these I've gone through a couple of times. I haven't heard Josh Mandel talk about the vaccine mandates. I haven't heard Jane Timken talk about the vaccine mandates. I'm really not sure what Mr. Gibbons has talked about. Mr. Paquita, I probably have to. So he's the only person talking about the vaccine mandates. He was the only person that I've actually ever heard say that we should declare the cartels a terrorist state. I couldn't agree any more with that. 1,000% I agree with that. And you actually just heard him say he would like to break up the big tech monopolies. Bust them up. So I will take those 4 things over Mom on a Mission and Grit and Grace and Workhorse Not a Show Horse and I'm a Marine. And anyway, that's where I'm leaning. So, but folks, I will say this. I'm supporting Mr. Vance. I'm going to vote for him. I'm going to do everything I can to help that campaign. And that's where I'm leaning. But when this is all said and done, we're going to have a candidate that survives this primary, and I'm going to get behind him. I'm going to get behind him. Josh Mandel, I want to just say, I'm kind of on a rant here, and there's one thing that I didn't say. If it's not J.D. Vance, I think Josh Mandel would make a great senator. But Josh, that incident with Mike Gibbons, one thing I was surprised. Josh Mandel's very youthful looking. He was treasurer of Ohio at a very young age. And maybe it's because I'm old. He just always looked like a really sharp, bright, young kid to me. I mean, kid like in late 20s, early 30s. Josh, you were born in 1977, Doc. You're 45 years old, and you're acting like that on stage? Come on. Come on, man. That's just not going to fly. And you never had the courage to admit that you were wrong. You could have made that a more powerful moment for yourself if you'd have just said, yeah, I got excited, because people like a fighter. People like a charger. But instead, you just doubled down and you wouldn't admit that you were wrong, because Mike Gibbons, he can't pull sentences together pretty well. But one thing he never said about you was that you never worked. He didn't say that. He said that you haven't worked in the private sector. And you haven't proved him wrong. I haven't found anything that proved him wrong. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's the show. We've got some good candidates. It's probably going to be right now. It's a three-way race between Gibbons, Mandel, J.D. Vance. If I was betting on a horse, and this was a horse race, a race horse, not a show horse, not a work horse, I'm putting my full support behind Mr. Vance. Back in 2016, he lipped off and had some things to say about Trump that weren't kind. I wasn't sold on Donald Trump when he entered the race. I was a Ted Cruz guy. In 2016, in the month of August, I watched how hard Mr. Trump worked. And I saw that Kellyanne Conway had taken over that campaign, and my attitude started to change. And when he was sworn in, my attitude really started to change. People can change, and it's okay if you admit that, you know what, I was wrong about something, and here's where I'm at. So anyway, folks, that's been the story. I'm going to be attending an event that JD's going to be in a couple of days. I hope to get some video, hope to get some clips. I hope I haven't made any enemies. I know I have some people that support Mr. Paquita. I really like Mr. Paquita. I think he's very strong, very sharp. He just hadn't gained enough traction. I just haven't seen that happen. Jane, try to be nice, but it takes more than being a mom on a mission and a workhorse and not a show horse. And if I hear that grit and grace one more time, I already said it, I'm going to grit my teeth right out of any grace that God has for me. And Mike Gibbons, you got to do more than just spend your own money, sir. Please just kind of step to the side. And if you want to spend money, spend some money on some people that are going to get it done. Anyway, guys, that's what I got. I know. And my good friend Brett thinks that Vance is a rhino. We can agree to disagree. He did say that, Brett, but he said it a long time ago. I will say this: Ohio Right to Life has endorsed J.D. Vance. My good friend Margie from Dayton Right to Life, she's absolutely in the can for Josh Mandel. So listen, if we disagree on something, we disagree on something. We're all friends. We're all family. When it's all said and done, we got to coalesce behind the person that's going to be the most conservative, the most Christian, and the most faithful, and the most determined. And so now y'all know where I stand. So with that, it's getting late. Y'all have been good. Appreciate you being with me. And until next time, I will say, God bless you. God bless your family. God bless the state of Ohio, which is going to elect a good senator and a good governor this time. And God bless the United States of America.
I hear the sweet sound of freedom, and I want